As your CPA, I prepare the financial reports for you each and every month. But for some owners, by the time they can actually sit down and look at them, you've already made a lot of decisions. Hiring people, signing leases, committing to marketing. They're all based on a gut feel in many cases instead of actual data. But that gut feel could cost you a lot of money. So I'm going to show you today how to connect your Xero accounting data directly to Claude so you can ask questions about your studio finances in plain English and get instant answers without waiting for a meeting with your CPA or spending an hour digging through reports. This is not about replacing your current accounting relationship. This is about making better decisions between meetings with your CPA. So let's start with why this actually matters for studio owners specifically. You're running a business with pretty tight margins. Labor is your biggest expenditure and material costs can fluctuate. Your cash flow is unpredictable because you have seasonality trends that are very different than a straight, flat business. You know you should be checking your numbers every week, but the reality is that pulling the reports from Xero and exporting them, trying to figure out what they mean, and then making sense of all that data takes a lot of time that you just don't have, and it doesn't sound all that fun, does it? So what happens? You make decisions based on how busy the studio feels. You hire when you're stressed. You cut costs when you panic. You only find out whether those decisions were right or wrong when you see the monthly closing and your CPA says, hey, your labor percentage jumped to 30% last month. What happened? By then, it's too late to fix it. So what if instead you could just open up Claude and ask, what percentage of revenue did I spend on labor last month? And get an instant answer. Or how many months of operating expenses do I have in the bank right now? And know immediately whether you can afford that new kiln or if you need to pump the brakes a little. That's what connecting Xero to Claude does. It turns your accounting data into a conversation. You ask questions in a normal human language. Claude goes into your Xero account, pulls that data, does the math, and gives you the answer. No export, no spreadsheet, no waiting. So let's talk about what you actually need to make this work. First, you need a Xero account. If you're already working with us, you do have a Xero account. If you're already using Xero for your accounting, you're in good shape. If not, this is a good time to switch just for this feature. But keep in mind, if you're evaluating accounting software, this is a good thing to look at, is how will AI allow me to use this data? Second, you'll need a Claude subscription. Heck, it's $20 a month. And if you're already paying for ChatGPT Plus, this is the same price tier. And honestly, for financial work, Claude is far better. Third, you need the Claude desktop app. Now, this is not the web version. It's a separate app that you download on your computer. It's free, and this is where the Xero connection lives. The web version of Claude can't do this yet, so you have to use the desktop app. Fourth, you'll need about 15 minutes to set up the connection. I'm going to walk you through the basics right here, and I'll put a detailed setup guide in the description below. So here's how it works. You'll download the Claude desktop app, open the settings. There's a section called MCP servers. MCP is a fancy description, stands for Model Context Protocol. That's just the technical term of how Claude connects to external tools. You do not need to understand how this works, you just need to know that Xero is one of the built-in options here. You'll click to enable the Xero MCP server. It will ask you to authenticate. This is the standard OAuth procedure. You just log into your Xero account just like you were logging in, and you'll authorize Claude to read your financial data. And that's it. The connection is now live. To test it, open up a new conversation with Claude in the desktop app and ask it something like, what's my current cash balance? Claude will go into Xero, pull your latest bank account totals, and tell you the number. If that works, you're connected. Now let's talk about what you can actually do with this. Use case number 1, a labor cost reality check. So labor is your biggest controllable expense in the studio typically. If your labor percentage is too high, and that's above 20 to 25%, you're losing money even when you feel busy. The industry benchmark, as I mentioned, is about 20%, but we see 25% in some cases where minimum wage rates are a little higher. So here's how to check it with Claude. Open up a conversation and you ask, what percentage of revenue did I spend on labor last month? Pretty easy, right? Claude will pull your payroll data from Xero. It pulls your revenue data, does the division, and it gives you the answer. Last month, you spent 22% of revenue on labor. Now you know. You're not guessing. You're not waiting for your CPA to tell you next month. You know right now. And if your Xero data is up to date all throughout the month, you can keep track of this all throughout the month. And if the number's bad, you can immediately ask follow-up questions. Was that because the revenue was down or because the payroll was up? Claude will break that down for you. Revenue was flat, but you had 2 extra part-time shifts scheduled during the week that you were out sick. Now you know exactly what happened, and you can fix that problem going forward. Let's look at case number 2, a material cost trend. Material costs fluctuate quite a bit. Paint prices can go up, the clay suppliers raise their minimums, shipping costs are always a big issue. And unless you're actively tracking cost of goods sold as a percentage of revenue, you really won't notice these increases until they've already eaten away at your profit for months. So here's the question you can ask Claude. Show me my material costs as a percentage of revenue for the last 6 months. Claude will pull your cost of goods sold account from Xero. It pulls your revenue by month, it calculates the percentage each month, and it shows you the trend. January was 18%, February 19%, and March jumped to 23%. Now you can see the problem. Something changed in March. Maybe your supplier raised prices, maybe you had more waste, maybe you ran a promotion that underpriced materials, or maybe you just bought too much. Whatever it is, you now know what to investigate. You don't need to wait until the end of the year to look at this and be surprised by these numbers. You catch it now and you fix it for April. How about case number 3, cash? Cash runway is how many months you can operate your current rate before you run out of money. This is the single most important number for any small business owner. And almost nobody tracks it in real time. Here's what to ask Claude. How many months of operating expenses do I have in the bank? Claude pulls your current cash balance. It looks at the average monthly operating expenses for the last 3 to 6 months. It divides cash by monthly burn. And it tells you you have 4.2 months of runway. Now you know exactly how much breathing room you have. If I add a part-time employee at 15 hours per week, how does that change my runway? Claude's going to recalculate and say your runway drops to 3.7 months. That is not a guess, folks. That is math based on your actual financial data. And it lets you make hiring decisions with clarity instead of panic. Once you get comfortable with these types of basic check-ins with Claude, you'll start going deeper. This is really where Claude becomes powerful. Let's say your profit margin dropped last month and you don't know why. You ask Claude, why did my profit margin drop 8% last month compared to the prior? Claude will pull your P&L, it'll compare the line items, it identifies the variances, and it explains. Your profit margin dropped because you had a one-time equipment repair expense of $2,400 and your utilities were 30% higher due to increased kiln usage. Pretty clear, right? Gives you good actionable information. You just did a variance analysis here in 30 seconds, and that is work that used to take an hour of spreadsheet detective work. And now it's just a conversation. Or let's say you want to compare your performance to budget. You ask, how am I tracking against my annual budget so far this year? Claude pulls your budget from Xero, it compares it to actual, and it tells you which categories are over and under. This is the kind of insight that helps you make good decisions real time instead of waiting for reviews with your CPA. So here's what I want you to do this week. First, set up the Claude desktop app and connect it to Xero. Again, check out the step-by-step guide in the description. It should take you no more than 15 minutes to do this. Second, start with one simple question. Ask Claude, what's my current cash balance? If it works, you are connected. Third, pick a KPI that you want to track weekly. For most studio owners, I would start with the labor percentage. Every Monday morning, ask Claude, what was my labor percentage last week? Make it a habit. And by the way, you can also set up scheduled tasks in Claude so that it will do this for you every week and remind you. Fourth, share with your CPA what you're learning and what you're asking Claude. A good CPA, like me, will love that you're more engaged with your numbers. It makes my job easier because you're asking better questions and we can get deeper. If you want more AI tools built specifically for studio owners, subscribe here. We've got some really cool stuff ahead. Next week, I'm going to show you how to use AI to automate your client follow-up without sounding like a robot. Link to the setup guide is in the description. I'll see you again next week.